Let's talk about the guy driving the $55,000 truck. You've seen him? Maybe you are him. $85,000 a year, chrome package, leather seats, backup camera, the full package. Instagram full of Cancun ski trips and restaurants where nobody puts prices on the menu. At the red light, people notice. At work, people assume. At dinner parties, nobody questions it. He looks like a guy who figured something out, like the math worked out for him in a way it hasn't for everyone else. His bank account has $400 in it, $8,700 on a credit card at 21% interest, minimum payments. And every single Thursday night, he's lying in bed doing mental arithmetic. Will the insurance auto payment hit before Friday's paycheck clears? Or after? Not dramatic. Not a crisis. Just a quiet, low-grade calculation that happens in the dark that he doesn't tell anyone about, that exists entirely beneath the surface of the life he presents to the world. That's the truck. That's what it actually costs. Now meet the other guy. Same city, same salary, same age bracket. He drives a 2019 Toyota Camry with 74,000 miles on it. Normal apartment in a normal neighborhood, clothes that are clean and fit well and that you would not be able to describe afterward if asked. He did not go to Cancun. He is not telling a story at dinner. He is not interesting to look at. He is, by every visible metric, unremarkable. He has $187,000 sitting in a Vanguard index fund, 0 credit card debt, a fully funded emergency account. He went to sleep last night without thinking about money once. Not because he's avoiding it, but because there's nothing to think about. The numbers work. They've been working for years, quietly, without anyone noticing. One guy looks rich. One guy is getting rich. And the distance between those two things, between the performance of financial success and the actual compounding arithmetic accumulation of it, is one of the most expensive mistakes a person can make. Not expensive in some abstract sense, expensive in the specific, calculable, devastating sense. Expensive in the sense of millions of dollars over a lifetime gone in exchange for the appearance of having arrived. My name is Dylan. I've spent more time than is probably healthy obsessing over exactly why this gap exists, how it sustains itself, what the psychology is that keeps intelligent people trapped inside it, and what specifically shifts when someone finally decides to stop feeding it. If any part of that truck story sounds familiar, if you felt something reading it, a recognition, a discomfort, a flash of that's closer to me than I'd like to admit, stay with me. Because today we're going to go through the math, the psychology, the behavioral economics, and the specific moment when everything starts to change. Here's what this is actually about, and what it isn't. This is not a video telling you to stop spending money on things you enjoy. That is not the argument, and it never has been. Enjoyment is the whole point of money. You should spend on things that make your actual life better. That is not under debate. The argument is narrower and more specific than that. It's about one particular category of spending. Money you drop not because something genuinely improves your life, but because of what it signals to other people about your life. People who, as we'll establish with actual data, are statistically not paying attention. The $2,400 bag that carries your stuff exactly as well as the $45 tote. The $55,000 truck that gets you to work exactly as reliably as a $15,000 used Corolla. The restaurant chosen not because the food is 12 times better, but because the name sounds like a certain kind of person eats there. The neighborhood chosen not because it's safer or more convenient, but because it's the kind of place you can mention at a dinner and watch people's reactions. The watch. The shoes. The label on the shirt that's visible from 10 feet away. The upgrade. The premium. The upsell you accepted not because you needed the extra features, but because the base model felt like a statement. You've felt the pull. Everyone has. And it's not a character flaw. That's the critical thing to understand before we go any further. This isn't about you being shallow or stupid or weak. The instinct toward the thing that communicates something rather than the thing that just works is not a personal failing. It is a psychological reflex so deeply embedded in human behavior that researchers estimate roughly 1 in 10 of your daily thoughts involves social comparison of some kind. When that comparison makes you feel behind, when you look around and feel like everyone else is doing better, the brain's default instinct is to spend your way back to looking equal, to close the gap visually even when you can't close it financially, to signal membership in a group you're still working toward joining. You are running 200,000-year-old social survival software in a world that figured out precisely how to monetize it. And the industry that profits from you never examining that reflex has spent billions in advertising, billions in product placement, billions in psychological research on purchasing behavior, making sure you keep running it without ever hitting pause. So, let's pause. The average new car payment in America right now is $767 per month. Sit with that. $767. That is not a BMW. That is not a luxury purchase. That is the average payment for a regular car bought by a regular person making a regular income. If you're looking at a truck or an SUV, which as of the last several years is what the majority of Americans are buying, you're staring at $900, $1,000, sometimes $1,100 per month. A vehicle that will be worth roughly 40% of its purchase price in 5 years. A thing you've been making payments on for 5 years that is now worth less than half of what you started owing. That's not an investment. That's not even neutral. That's paying a premium to lose money on a schedule. Here's the alternative. A 3-year-old Honda Accord costs $15,000 to $18,000. A 3-year-old Toyota Camry is in the same range. Modern vehicles maintained properly routinely go 200,000 miles without significant mechanical failure. The reliability gap between a new vehicle and one that's 3 years old is, in practical terms, essentially fictional. The engineering is the same, the safety ratings are the same. What's different is the depreciation hit, which the first owner already absorbed, and the monthly payment, which at 3 years old, bought in cash or with a short loan, lands somewhere between $0 and $250 a month. The gap between those two scenarios, $500 to $700 per month every single month for 5 or 6 years. That's the car. Now let's talk about food, because this one consistently catches people off guard. The average American spends $879 per month at restaurants. Per month. That is more than most people's car payment, more than most people's rent in large portions of the country 20 years ago. And here's the number that should hit harder. For the first time in recorded American history, we now spend more than half of our total food budget eating outside the home rather than cooking. More than half. The home-cooked meal has become the exception rather than the default. Some of that spending is genuine enjoyment, meals with people you love, food you genuinely couldn't recreate, experiences that are actually worth the price. Nobody's arguing against that. But be honest about what percentage of your restaurant spending is actually that. The expensive lunch because the meeting was draining and you needed to get out of the office. The trendy dinner because someone was visiting and you wanted to seem like you knew the city. The $22 cocktail because the bar had exposed brick and Edison bulbs and you were already there, and ordering the $8 beer felt like a downgrade in that specific social moment. That is not enjoyment, that is performance. And it costs $400 to $500 more per month than actual enjoyment needs to cost. Add grocery brands switching to the calculation. Consumer Reports has run blind taste tests for decades. In more than half of head-to-head comparisons, store brand products are rated identically to or better than the name brand equivalent. The box with the logo costs 30 to 40% more. The product inside is the same product. Switch where it doesn't matter, which is almost everywhere, and you're recovering another $100 to $150 per month without giving up anything real. Then there's vacation debt, which deserves its own line because it is one of the most psychologically revealing spending patterns that exists. 26% of Americans are currently carrying debt from a vacation they've already taken. The experience is over, the tan is faded, the photos have been posted, and the credit card bill is still arriving every month with interest for something that no longer exists. The memory doesn't compound, the debt does. Add all of it together. The car premium, the dining performance, the brand markup, the vacation financing, the neighborhood chosen for prestige over value, the wardrobe purchases made for visibility rather than function, the conservative annual status tax. The amount spent above what a functionally equivalent life would cost lands somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 per year, every year, paid specifically and exclusively to maintain an image that, as we'll get into, the audience you imagine you're performing for is largely not watching. Let's run the actual numbers. Not abstract percentages. Real figures, real math, because concrete numbers are harder to dismiss than concepts. Marcus, $85,000 a year, gross monthly income, $7,083. After federal tax, state tax, and FICA, he takes home roughly $5,200. That is his real money, the actual number, everything he has to work with. Now watch it disappear. Truck payment, $867. Insurance on the truck, because new trucks are expensive to insure, and Marcus didn't think about that when he was sitting in the dealership. $230. Gas, because a truck that gets 17 miles per gallon and a 25-mile commute each way means filling up twice a week. $280. That's $1,377 before Marcus has paid for a place to live, food to eat, or a single other thing. Rent in the neighborhood he likes to casually reference in conversation, $1,450. Utilities: electricity, gas, water, internet, and phone, $320. Groceries, the name brands, the good cuts, the imported stuff, $420. Dining out, and let's actually be generous here, let's assume he's somewhat restrained, $750. Subscriptions: Netflix, Spotify, the gym he joined in January and visited 6 times total, the meal kit service he signed up for during a promotion, the cloud storage upgrade, and the app he forgot to cancel sometime in 2022. $190. Student loans, $380. Health insurance premium not fully covered by his employer, $180. Added up, $5,067 per month. Take home, $5,200. Marcus has $133 left. And we have not touched clothing, car maintenance, medical copays, birthday gifts, random Amazon purchases, the coffee, the parking, the dry cleaning, and critically, the $175 minimum payment on that $8,700 credit card balance running at 21% interest, which isn't even paying down the principal in any meaningful way. It's just keeping him from falling further behind. Marcus is not broke. He is not destitute. He makes $85,000 a year, which puts him above the median household income in the United States. But he is one unexpected expense away from a charge he cannot cover. The HVAC unit fails in August. That's a $3,000 repair he doesn't have. Someone rear-ends him at a stoplight. The deductible goes on the card. His dog develops a condition requiring surgery. He is now financing veterinary care at 21% interest. His laptop dies. He is making payments on a computer. This is the actual texture of being Marcus. Not dramatic, not obviously desperate, technically comfortable, quietly terrified, performing a confidence he has not earned and does not feel. Going to sleep on Thursday doing the math, waking up on Friday checking the account before he checks anything else. Carrying a weight that has no visible shape but is present every single day. Now Tyler, same $5,200 take home, same city, same options available to him, different choices, used Camry, fully paid off, no monthly payment, insurance on a used Camry, $110. Gas, because the Camry gets 32 miles per gallon and he has the same commute Marcus does, $140. Rent in a neighborhood that is perfectly fine in every practical way but does not have a name that turns heads, $1,100. Utilities, $280. Groceries, store brand where it doesn't matter, which is most places, $320. Dining out, actual meals he actually enjoys with people he actually wants to see, not performances, $300. Student loans, same as Marcus, $380. Health insurance, $180. Total, $2,890 left every month. It goes into a Vanguard index fund and it does not get touched. It doesn't fund a weekend trip. It doesn't get moved around to cover a shortfall. It doesn't disappear into a credit card payment. It sits there and it compounds and it does its job. Same salary, same city, same age. $2,390 per month difference. That is the entire game. Right there. Here's where the numbers become genuinely difficult to look at directly because the math doesn't care about your feelings about the math. $2,390 per month invested consistently at the S&P 500's historical average annual return of 10%. After 10 years, $486,000. After 20 years, $1.8 million. After 30 years, if you're 30 years old right now and Tyler is your model, $5.4 million. From the gap between a truck and a Camry. Between the impressive neighborhood and the fine one, between performing at restaurants and actually eating at them, between $867 a month and $110 in insurance and no payment. And the asymmetry gets worse when you look at the finish line. Tyler's total annual expenses are $33,720. Under the standard financial independence framework, the one backed by the Trinity study and decades of portfolio research, you need 25 times your annual expenses invested to sustain indefinite withdrawals without depleting your principal. Tyler's number, the number he needs to never have to work again unless he wants to, is $843,000. He crosses that threshold somewhere around year 14. He's 44 years old and employment becomes optional. Marcus's annual expenses are north of $60,000, and that's before the credit card interest, before the irregular expenses, before the inevitable cost of maintaining a lifestyle that costs more than he earns. His target is $1.5 million. And since he's saving almost nothing, Since the truck and the lifestyle and the compound interest on the debt are consuming literally everything, he is not moving toward that number. He is treading water, maintaining position, running as fast as he can to stay in the same place. And the watch he's wearing while he does it is part of why. Here's what the actual data on millionaires looks like, because this matters. Thomas Stanley spent several decades studying verified American millionaires, people with documented seven-figure net worths, not people who looked the part or acted the part or drove what you'd expect. What he found was so consistently counterintuitive that it took multiple books and thousands of pages of research to get people to take it seriously. The number one car brand among American millionaires, Toyota. Second, Honda. Third, Ford. The average millionaire drives a car approximately 4 years old. Only 5.7% of millionaires have ever paid more than $1,000 for a suit. Ever. Once in their life. The typical millionaire's most recent haircut costs $16, including the tip. Nearly 40% of verified millionaires regularly buy wine that costs around $10 a bottle and consider it perfectly adequate. Let that settle. The statistical profile of the wealthiest people in your neighborhood is not the person with the most visible signals of wealth. It is, in most cases, precisely the opposite. The Ramsey Solutions study of over 10,000 verified millionaires adds more detail. 79% received no inheritance of any meaningful size. 1 in 3 never made six figures in a single year of their entire career. They accumulated their wealth on ordinary incomes over time by consistently spending less than they earned and investing the difference. The least glamorous story imaginable. Also the most reliable one ever documented. And then there's this number, which I think is the most clarifying single data point in this entire conversation. Non-millionaires purchase 86% of all luxury cars sold in America. 86%. Not millionaires buying status symbols. Regular people, people who have not accumulated wealth, spending as though they have in an attempt to signal that they belong to a group that has. The gleaming new truck at the red light. The leased German sedan with the payment that's quietly devastating the family budget. Overwhelmingly, statistically, not wealthy people. People performing wealth as a strategy for feeling wealthy, which is a strategy that mathematically prevents the actual accumulation of wealth. It is almost elegant in how completely it defeats itself. The very behavior motivated by wanting to be rich is the primary reason most people never get there. Warren Buffett lives in the same house in Omaha, Nebraska he bought in 1958 for $31,500. His breakfast budget is under $3.17. He usually orders at McDonald's, and he has his wife put the exact change in the cup holder every morning. He once drove a car with the vanity plate that read T.H. Rifty. This is a man worth north of $150 billion. He is not performing restraint for the cameras. He stopped performing anything so long ago that he apparently no longer remembers it was ever expected of him. Mark Zuckerberg wears the same gray t-shirt in public every day, not because he can't afford otherwise, but because he decided at some point that clothing was not a domain where he wanted to spend cognitive or financial resources. Jeff Bezos, for most of his career building Amazon into the largest company on earth, drove a Honda Accord. These people do not perform wealth, they have it. The correlation between the performance and the accumulation runs in the wrong direction. It always has. Cornell University researchers ran an experiment that has become one of the most referenced in social psychology. They took participants and had them put on an embarrassing shirt, a bright Barry Manilow face impossible to miss, and then sent them into a room full of other people. Afterward, they asked the participants, "How many people in that room do you think noticed your shirt?" The average guess was around 50%. About half the room, participants assumed, had clocked the shirt and registered it. The actual number was 25%. People overestimate how closely others are watching them by a factor of 2. Not slightly, not marginally, by half. Psychologists name this the spotlight effect, the consistent, measurable tendency to believe that the spotlight of social attention is trained on us more intensely than it actually is. Apply that to your car, your neighborhood, your shoes, your watch, the restaurant you chose for the name, the bag with the visible logo, the upgrade you paid for because the base model felt like a statement. Half the audience you're performing for was never watching, and the other half, the ones you do notice, are almost certainly running the same performance themselves, which means they're too focused on their own show to evaluate yours. A 2010 study published in the Journal of Marketing Research added a layer to this that's harder to swallow. When researchers examined the purchasing patterns of genuinely wealthy people versus people who were spending to appear wealthy, they found a consistent and measurable difference. Actually, wealthy people gravitate toward what the researchers called quiet luxury. Brands and products where the quality is real but the signaling is subtle. recognizable only to others who are already inside the group. The loud logo. The conspicuous badge, the obviously expensive purchase designed to be readable from across a room. Those patterns were statistically associated with people spending upward, trying to signal into a group they hadn't yet joined. The performance is, in effect, the tell. The louder the signal, the less likely the sender actually has what they're trying to communicate. And then there's the part that the financial content ecosystem almost never talks about because it's harder to quantify and easier to dismiss. You buy the truck. The first 3 weeks are real. The smell of the interior, the height of the seat, the way it looks when you catch your reflection in a storefront window. Every time you climb in, there's a genuine hit of something. Satisfaction, arrival, confirmation. It feels like something you've been working toward. It feels like you made it. Then it's just the truck. The truck you owe $867 a month on. The truck that needs new tires. The truck that gets 17 miles per gallon in a city with gas prices that are never going down. It's just the truck. It is now the baseline, the new normal. And the hit is gone, and what's left is the payment. Dan Ariely's research on hedonic adaptation and price is precise on this point. The brain's reward response to a status purchase peaks at the moment of acquisition and begins declining almost immediately. Within weeks, sometimes days, the brain recalibrates. The new thing becomes the default thing. The excitement is over, and the obligation remains. The only way to recover the feeling is to upgrade again, to find the next threshold, to make the next acquisition. It is, in the most literal neurological sense, a subscription service for a feeling you never actually own. You pay for access every month. The feeling itself is perpetually just ahead of you. Research on what's called the hedonic treadmill, the tendency for humans to return to a relatively stable level of satisfaction regardless of positive or negative life changes, shows that this adaptation applies symmetrically. The thing that makes the truck ordinary after 3 weeks of excitement is the same mechanism that makes the Camry ordinary after 3 weeks of adjustment. The discomfort of downgrading is real, and it passes. At the same rate as the excitement of upgrading, both adapt. The difference is what's left after they do. Here's the piece that most personal finance content glosses over because it doesn't fit neatly into a spreadsheet. Stopping status spending doesn't feel like a financial decision. It feels like a confession. It feels like a statement about who you are and who you've decided to stop pretending to be. When Marcus sits down and does the math, really does it, with honest numbers, and arrives at the conclusion that he should sell the truck and buy a used Camry, he doesn't experience it as a logical optimization. He experiences something closer to grief. What does this say about me? The coworker who parked next to him every day and definitely noticed the truck. The person he's dating. The version of himself he's been presenting for 2, 3, 5 years. What does it mean to quietly revise that? To walk it back without explanation? To show up differently and hope nobody asks why? Consumer psychologists have documented this with precision. We incorporate our possessions into our sense of identity in ways that are not superficial or trivial. They are genuinely integrated into the narrative we tell about ourselves. The car isn't just a car, it's evidence. Evidence that you're the kind of person who has that car. Letting it go doesn't feel like a vehicle downgrade. It feels like an admission. It feels like the story you've been telling is being revised against your will, even when you're the one revising it, even when you know it's the right call. The feeling is real. It is documented, and it will fight you. But here's what happens after it. Because there's a well-documented after, nearly everyone who makes this shift, who absorbs the discomfort of the downgrade, who sits with the 3 weeks of adjustment, who gets through the initial period of feeling like they've admitted something, reports the same thing on the other side, that the low-grade financial anxiety they had stopped consciously registering was costing them something significant. Not just money. Something in the quality of their daily experience, the background hum of financial stress that had become so constant they'd stopped hearing it as stress and started hearing it as just the texture of life. And when it's gone, when the numbers actually work, when Thursday night arrives and there's nothing to calculate in the dark, the absence of that is worth more than the truck ever was. Not slightly more, dramatically more. The social consequences of the downgrade, by the way, are approximately what the spotlight effect predicts. 25% of the audience actually notices. The ones who notice and judge you for making a financially rational decision, those people should not be the advisory board for your financial future. They are almost certainly Marcus, running their own show, watching you not at all. Real wealth, the kind that's worth building, the kind that changes what your life actually looks like on a Tuesday, doesn't arrive with fanfare. It doesn't come with a moment of recognition, or a visible marker or an Instagram post that captures it. It looks like a Tuesday morning. You wake up, you make coffee, you sit there with it. It's not a vacation, It's not a reward. It's not a special occasion. It is just Tuesday. And Tuesday is yours. You don't have to be anywhere. You don't have to perform anything. You don't have to calculate anything. You can go somewhere or you can stay where you are. And both options are available because you built the optionality month by month in the least dramatic way imaginable. That is what Tyler's $2,390 per month is buying. Not today, not yet. It hasn't arrived, but it's on its way, quietly, arithmetically, compounding while he sleeps, compounding while he works, compounding while Marcus is lying awake on Thursday doing math about Thursday. The research on money and well-being has converged on something specific that's worth stating clearly, because it contradicts the fundamental premise of status spending. For most people, money's primary contribution to happiness comes almost entirely from autonomy, the ability to direct your own time, to make your own choices, to move through the world without needing permission from a boss or a schedule or a debt obligation. Not from the acquisition of things, not from the quality of possessions, from the freedom created by having more than you spend. The stuff adapts. You've seen the research, you felt it. You bought something and it was extraordinary for 3 weeks and then it was just the thing in your apartment. The autonomy doesn't adapt. The Tuesday morning that belongs to you doesn't get old. The absence of an alarm you hate doesn't become ordinary. Those things compound differently than purchases do. The Harvard Business School research on this is striking when they compared how wealthy people in the general population actually spend their time. Not money, time. They found that wealthy people spend dramatically more hours on what researchers classified as active leisure and dramatically fewer hours doing things they described as obligatory. The luxury they were consuming wasn't a product. It was the absence of obligation. The permission to spend their time according to their own preferences rather than according to the demands of a job they couldn't afford to lose. You cannot purchase that experience with a status buy. A status purchase votes directly against it. Every monthly payment is a vote for staying exactly where you are. Same desk, same commute, same boss, same loop. Because you cannot afford to disrupt the income stream that services the debt, that funds the performance, that signals the success that you don't actually have. Marcus doesn't just have a truck payment. He has a hostage situation. The truck owns him as much as he owns the truck. There's one more thing worth addressing because it comes up every time this conversation happens. The argument is sometimes made that Tyler's life sounds joyless, Spartan, that optimizing everything for future financial freedom means giving up actual living in the present, that you can't take it with you, and what's the point of a Tuesday morning that belongs to you at 44 if the 30 years before it were empty? It's a fair challenge. And it's also a false choice. Tyler isn't miserable. Tyler eats at restaurants. He spends $300 a month on dining, which is real meals with real people he actually wants to sit across from. Tyler takes vacations. He just doesn't finance them. Tyler buys clothes. He just doesn't buy them to be seen. Tyler's life is not a deprivation exercise. It's a curation exercise. He has made deliberate decisions about which categories of spending produce actual enjoyment and which categories produce performance, and he has redirected the performance budget toward the index fund. The question isn't, do you want to enjoy your life now or later? The question is, how much of your current spending is producing actual enjoyment versus producing a signal that the people you're performing for aren't watching? That answer, if you're honest about it, is probably not what you want to hear, but it's the answer that changes things. If you're watching this with the truck payment and the credit card balance and the account that hasn't meaningfully moved in 2 or 3 years, I need to say something clearly and without softening it. You are not bad with money. You are not irresponsible. You are not shallow. You are not failing at adulthood. You are running software that was installed in you by an economy that profits every single month you keep running it without examining it. The car dealer, the credit card company, the streaming service, the fast fashion brand, the algorithm that shows you what success is supposed to look like. None of them make money when you look at the loop and say, this doesn't actually serve me. All of them make money while you stay in it. The system was designed to be hard to see and harder to exit. The difficulty of exiting it is a feature, not a bug. Seeing the loop is the whole thing, not the moment you sell the truck, not the moment you cancel the subscription, move to the cheaper apartment, or switch to store brand olive oil. Those are logistics. Logistics are easy once the decision is made. The actual moment, the one that changes everything, is when you look at the truck and realize you don't actually want what the truck is. You want what you think the truck makes other people think of you. And since those people aren't watching, since half the audience you imagined was never there and the other half is running their own show, you have been paying $867 a month for a show with no viewers. That's the moment. Everything else is just execution. Tyler is boring. This is worth saying directly and without apology. Tyler is invisible. He drives the Camry, orders the house wine, lives in the apartment that nobody mentions. His Instagram is either non-existent or deeply unimpressive. At dinner parties, he doesn't have a story that turns heads. Nobody looks at Tyler and feels the complicated mixture of admiration and inadequacy that Marcus's truck is designed to produce. Nobody's looking at all, and Tyler at 44 is going to wake up on a Tuesday morning and go nowhere. Not because he can't go somewhere. Because he doesn't have to go somewhere, because he has no place he is required to be, no income he is terrified to lose, no payment coming out Thursday that he needs to calculate against Friday, because $187,000 became $400,000, became $843,000, became enough. And became enough faster than anyone watching him in his 30s would have predicted, because nobody was watching him in his 30s because there was nothing interesting to watch. He got there in the least dramatic way possible, month by month. Camry in the parking lot, store-brand groceries, house wine, the boring apartment, the unremarkable wardrobe, the absolutely predictable, arithmetically inevitable accumulation of the difference between what he made and what he spent. That is what $5.4 million looks like before it arrives. Boring, unremarkable. A 2019 Camry in a forgettable parking lot, a Vanguard account nobody's posting about, a Thursday night with nothing to calculate, completely, absolutely, arithmetically. On its way.